Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Bethyl Asks. I'm here to answer more of your questions, and we are just going to dive in, if I can pull them up here. All right, first one. Is it true that there was a leak of the script for the episode Alone? I heard that Beth realized that Daryl had fallen in love with her. Okay, so what you're thinking of here, it wasn't really a leak per se. I honestly don't remember if there was a leaked script for that episode because I wasn't online as much until after season 4. But what you're thinking of here, I believe, is that they did put up, what did they call them? Episode summaries? That doesn't seem like that's the right word. Synopsis. Maybe it was episode synopsis. So what they would do is after the season, so it was actually after season 4, so after she was taken, after, everyone ended up at Terminus, they would put up on the website eventually a synopsis for that episode. And in the synopsis for Alone, yes, they did confirm that Beth realized that Daryl had feelings for her. And guys, you got to understand, this is not a theory. This is a fact. This actually happened. They put up these synopses, and they 100% confirmed that scene with the dinner and everything was meant to be him conveying to her that he had romantic feelings for her and her realizing it. That's what the O was about. Now, once they put these synopses up, they went up on the AMC website, I believe, the official site. And real fast, within an hour, or two, it started to spread through the fandom and everybody started flipping out in both good and bad ways. The people who liked it were super excited. And I think everyone was just surprised that they put that up and confirmed it, so people were going, oh my gosh, they confirmed it. We were right. That's exactly what was happening. And of course, some of the shippers who didn't like Beth and Daryl together were flipping out in a bad way, that too. But it did spread really fast, and then really, really quickly they took it down. Like within an hour, maybe not even that. As it started to spread through the fandom and everyone started reacting, they hurried and took it down. And it seems to me, again, I couldn't say this for sure, but it seems to me that them saying if Daryl did have feelings for her, he didn't understand them. I almost feel like they started saying that after the synopsis went up and then got taken down. And I think it was a way to counter it because so many of the fans who didn't like it were freaking out. So they almost started saying that as a way to mitigate that and I don't know, just kind of to maybe do some damage control, because I don't know if they didn't want that going out and it was, some intern who put it up and got in trouble for it, or if it was more like they didn't realize there would be that big a reaction and then they kind of backpedaled. I don't know. But it was really interesting to watch that play out. But yeah. 100%, they did confirm that. So that's the other thing that maybe we should say, too, is, yeah, we call ourselves Team Delusional, and, yeah, we have a lot of theories about, our theories are us forecasting things that haven't happened yet and how we think they're going to happen. But it's not like we're pulling this out of thin air. We actually have a lot of confirmation, too, a lot of evidence. And this is a big one that we probably don't talk about enough, that they did confirm that scene was about romance, So not too long, it would have been probably a year after that because it was after Coda. There was, and I always get it wrong, it was, I always want to say it was a panel, and then people tell me that's wrong, and it wasn't a panel, it was an interview or something like that. But it was a fan question, and somebody asked Norman if Beth had not been shot, would he and Beth have gotten together, Daryl and Beth? And Norman basically confirmed it. He didn't say yes, obviously, but he said, well, there was a taste of it in the air. So, that's pretty much yes, but, yeah, so we have gotten more than one confirmation of this. It's not just something that we're making up, so don't let anyone tell you that's the case. But at the same time, it's understandable why other people doubt it, because the powers that be have gone out of their way, too, to make it seem like maybe that's not the case, and obviously to make it seem like she died, and so it's not happening. So anyway, yeah, this is a really great question, and I appreciate you bringing it up because, yeah, it's something we don't actually talk about all that much, but it is something that really did happen, so. All right, I've got a couple here that I'm not going to address in too much detail because I already have. So thank you to Natural Blue 26 for sending me the article. But this is one that I addressed in the, emergency video that I did when all this stuff was happening. It's about Zabel, which, by the way, I heard somebody call him Zabel on a YouTube video, so that's what I'm going to say now. And if it's wrong, at least I'm not the only one saying it wrong, right? It's about him saying that they're not going to make Daryl and Carol romantic and all of that. The funny thing about this, I was thinking about this, is that, I mean, obviously, most of us could have told you this 5 years ago or more, because we've always said this, but it's actually, this really isn't the first time that it's been confirmed that Daryl and Carol won't be a thing. I mean, they're always trying to drop hints in one way or the other, and those hints are just not being picked up by certain fandoms. But actually, some time ago, I don't remember how long it was, like maybe 4 years ago, and don't quote me on the date because I don't remember, but Cudlitz, who played Abraham, Michael Cudlitz, gave an interview. I want to say that it might have been on the Walking Dead podcast they used to do. Now, that podcast, I did keep an eye on it, but overall, it wasn't my favorite thing. They would have various actors come on to it. So if there was somebody I was really interested in, like they had Christine, is it Woods? The gal that played Dawn, and I listened to her interview. But then a lot of times they would have other actors that just played small parts, like a savior who was just in a few episodes, that sort of thing. And then a lot of times they would talk more about the actor and their career than about the show. So not that any of that's bad, but it just wasn't the most interesting thing to me because there wasn't a whole lot of the show in it being discussed. Anyway, but they did one where they interviewed Cudlitz, and it was like a year or two after he left the show, after Abraham and Glenn died. But for those who don't know, Cudlitz still works on the show to this day, but he just works behind the scenes. He's done directing for them. He's done various work because, they just like him, and so they brought him back to do other roles. But because of that, he was interviewed, and they specifically asked him about Daryl and Carol. And he pretty much said the same thing that Zabel says here. I mean, not in so many words, I will say. Zabel was much more obvious and direct about it. Back then, Cudlitz was still talking around it a little bit, but he basically said that they weren't going to be doing that. And I remember that they asked, the interviewer asked specifically, well, what about those fans who think Daryl and Carol should get together romantically? And he said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, well, it's their prerogative to interpret it that way if they want. We feel strongly that the fans should each individually take away from the show what they want to take away from it. So if that's the way they want to interpret it, we're not going to tell them that's wrong. But there was kind of this unspoken but. What he was trying to say is that in the show, they're not going that way with it. But if the fans want to, fantasize and I don't know, campaign for Daryl and Carol being together because that's what they love and that's what they're taking away from the show, then they should feel free to do that. But that doesn't mean that's what they're going to actually do in the show. Okay, that's basically what Cudlitz said. But again, not totally direct. He did dance around it. He was a little vague, but that was clearly what his message was. And that's not terribly different than what Zabel said. So it's one of those things, I think they finally had to bite the bullet and be direct because there's just certain fandoms that are just not getting it, so that's just what they had to do. And of course there's a backlash. They knew there'd be a backlash, and but it'd be better to have the backlash now and have them know that that's not where the show is going than go into it thinking or hoping that there is still hope that will happen when there's not. Okay, anyway, but that's all I'll say about that. Same with this one. I covered Scott Gimple's post in that video as well. It came on the heels of Zabel, and there was one other thing. Remember, there was like 3 things. I don't remember. Oh, it was the Walking Dead edit that was about Beth and Daryl. So it was very, very suspicious that we got all of these together. But I don't have a whole lot more to say about that. Okay. Next one. Just a thought, the guitar Daryl carries could be Laurent's. He played after the nuns were buried. Of course, what the writers want us to think about when we see it may have nothing to do with Laurent. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they will come up with some reason for him to be carrying the guitar. Yeah, it could be Laurent's, it could be somebody else's. There'll be a logical reason, and the writers are always really good about this, okay? They're really sneaky about it. There's always some reason in the show for them to have the symbolism there. And it's like a plausible deniability thing so that people who don't believe in the symbolism can be like, no, that was part of the plot. He had to carry it because of X, Y, and Z. And that's true. I mean, they're not wrong. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't placed there perfectly as part of the plot so that they could also include the symbolism. So yeah, I totally agree. I'm sure there will be a reason in the plot for him to carry it that has nothing to do with Beth, but symbolically is another story. So totally. Thank you, Granny TWD. Good to hear from you. Okay, what's this one? Okay, this post, I did see this. Who knew hugs could be so dangerous? Are David Zabel's unsanctioned comments yesterday going to be dealt with, or is the expectation for cute videos to make fans forget they aren't getting what they want in the show. So this is this was sent in because this is a Caryl comment, and I will explain what this post was here. Points to every time you've ever made clear he literally can't be going around saying unsanctioned things. yes. Okay. So let me explain what this is. I did end up looking at this post. This was just kind of a snippet of an interview they did with Melissa and Norman, and they were talking about the scene from 501 when they hugged. And they said at one point he ran up and hugged her so hard that she kind of fell over. And it's Melissa teasing him about it, being like, yeah, you kind of beat me up, you kind of, kicked me in the ribs, and they're just goofing around about it, like it's just a joke. And so that's why when the Walking Dead account posted this, it said, who knew hugs could be so dangerous? But again, it's just a way to promote the new season with Melissa and Norman, and this is a very iconic Daryl and Carol moment, so that's what they're using, and they're talking about it, and they're being funny. And the salty Carolers, this is their response. They're saying that what he said is unsanctioned, and they want the show to come out and say that what he said was unsanctioned, and say that it wasn't true. And then they're bitter that they keep showing these cute videos, which to them shows that there should be romance going on there. And they feel like it's rubbing salt in their wounds because they've been told that they won't get what they want. They won't get a Daryl Carol romance. But yeah, I don't know that I have a whole lot more to say. Natural Blue 26 is right. Zabel is the showrunner. And you know what I was going to say, I didn't actually finish what I was saying. It just reminded me about Cudlitz when I was talking about his interview. Cudlitz, he's not a showrunner, but he's directed, and we literally have pictures of him consulting on scripts with Gimple and Nicotero and Angela Kang. So he knows what's going on, and I meant to add that when I was talking about his interview. The same thing here. Now, Zabel, he may not be able to talk about certain things, but he's the showrunner for the spinoff, okay? Trust me, he knows what's going to happen. If Beth is coming back, he knows that. If she's not coming back, he knows that. If Daryl and Isabel are going to be together long term, he knows that. Whatever is going to happen, whatever they are aiming toward, he knows what it is. He knows several seasons ahead of where they are in the production. So if he's telling us that there's not going to be a Daryl and Carol, that is not an unsanctioned comment, okay? That is him getting permission from Gimple and Kang and all, the studio, all the higher-ups to say that in an interview. Otherwise, he wouldn't be allowed to say it. So I understand that they're hoping and wishing for it to be unsanctioned, but it isn't. That is just wishful thinking on their part. So yeah, thank you for sending this in, and yeah, I don't have a whole lot more to say. It's just more people being salty, and I get that they're disappointed. They have every right to be disappointed and upset, but it's not going to change the direction of the show. So I actually thought the interview where they were talking about that was kind of funny. I thought it was kind of cute. So anyway, Granny TWD. Loved your recent video on the Daryl Beth Skybound edit. I imagine that will be a rewatch edit for most of TD. Symbolically, Beth is connected with the sun, right? Yes. So over the years, I choose to think that many of the sun shots they include are intentionally to bring Beth into the scene. In the edit, they include my favorite one of Daryl sitting on the riverbank in Find Me, brilliant sun rising across the river, so beautiful. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, a lot of people have noticed that, and a lot of it has to do with the music, too. So whenever there's, I guess not whenever, but very often when we have Daryl and specifically they're showing the sunlight peering down on him or the rays of the sun coming through the trees, it tends to have really gentle music, and it just feels like we're calling on Beth and on all of the emotions he had while he was with her. So yeah, I mean, you're definitely not alone in that. A lot of people have come to believe that the sun is very much connected with Beth, at least where Daryl is concerned. It also just popped into my head that back at the prison, remember the chalk murals at the prison? And there was a lot of foreshadowing and symbolism in the chalk murals. And we had the sun. We had plenty of posts back in the day that talked about Abibel, which is a sun symbol. And the thing is, we saw that at the prison. We also saw it in 509, which is the episode, technically the last episode Beth was in, even though she was Tyrese's hallucination, right? But she was featured in that episode, and it kept showing the sun along with all the other images in that episode, and she was a part of it. So yeah, I definitely think that that is a thing. It's not always entirely clear how they're using it or like it's sometimes hard to translate or to like articulate verbally, okay, this is what they're going for here, but we just know that in kind of a nebulous way they use that symbol. So yeah, 100%. And I thought it was interesting, really interesting, that they included anything from Find Me in that edit, because in a way that is confirmation that what was going on in Find Me was very much about Beth in some way, even though she wasn't in it, we didn't see her, we didn't hear her name, nothing like that. I mean, it was a romantic relationship with Daryl, and this is actually kind of a perfect thing to include with what I've said so far, because going back to that first ask, they did confirm that there were romantic feelings there between Daryl and Beth. So then when we jump forward to Find Me with Leah, how could there not be ties back to that when it's literally he's never had another romantic relationship? You know what I mean? Like, and it would be different if Beth was like just some gal he dated, his ex, but that's not the way that it was. I mean, she died. He carried her out, or at least he believes she died. And it was this whole unrequited mess of emotions, right, that was never, ever resolved. So how could she not be in his head and in his heart while the whole Find Me thing is going on? And so it just, that edit was so great because it kind of confirmed that. But yeah, no, I 100% agree. And it was a really lovely sunset. And that part of him sitting on the riverbank, it was so melancholy because he was so often in such a dark spot, but it was like he was thinking about Beth the whole time. And yeah, anyway, so yeah, I totally appreciate that. Thank you so much for sending that in. All right, I will call it there for today, but I will be back soon with more questions and answers. Have a wonderful day, guys. Talk to you soon.